Dan Raviv. He's in Washington. He's a columnist for Newsday in the United States and joins us live. Dan, it's always good to speak with you and thank you for being with us on what is a particularly somber day for Americans. First, just please, if you can, give us your memories of that September morning.
Well, myself, I was a broadcaster at CBS Radio, and it was a normal Tuesday morning. I was preparing some interesting item for the 9 a.m. Eastern Time news when I got word from my producer in New York. I was in Washington, and in my ears, the producer said, "Turn on the TV. There's been some accident at the World Trade Center." So when the first hijacked plane hit the World Trade Center, we thought it was an accident. We thought it might be a small plane. But then barely 20 minutes later, a second plane hit the other tower of the World Trade Center. Every American who was watching, I was on the radio trying to convey that to millions of people listening to morning radio in the United States, that the U.S. was under attack. A short while later, here in Washington, where I am, came word that the Pentagon was hit, a third hijacked plane. And then we heard that there were more hijacked planes. It turns out just one other. When we heard about an air crash in Pennsylvania near the town of Shanksville, it turned out, we learned later, that 40 passengers on that plane had fought back, and they're being remembered as heroes. It was the beginning of a war which for many Americans ended just 2 weeks ago when the United States got all of its forces out of Afghanistan. But there's a fear, by the way, that the terrorism might resume and that the war, therefore, isn't over, Kamali.
Yeah, and that fear remains there and very present for many people, Dan. And let's now go, as Kilmeny was discussing there, the middle period then after 9/11, once it was clear that the United States were set on retaliating against those who had carried out that attack. George Bush, of course, saying in the days after that those people who brought down these buildings will hear everyone very soon. That period in American history, of course, will be widely studied in the years that come. Sorry, we've lost the pictures there from New York. We'll bring them back to you. There you go, as soon as we get them. That period, of course, will be closely studied, of course, and we are still going through some of the ramifications of that time, Dan. But as Kilmeny was saying, it did usher in a period of xenophobia in the United States, mass surveillance, not just of Muslim Americans, but of many people in the United States. Of course, you've got to remember what happened with the NSA files, the invasion of Afghanistan, and then the invasion of Iraq. As you say, it's, for many people, has come to an end with the American withdrawal from Afghanistan. But it does beg the question then, for many people, was what happened in the following 20 years really worth it?
Well, the main thing on the minds of Americans is, are we safe? Could it happen again? Could 9/11 happen 20 years later? It doesn't seem like a group of 19 men from the Middle East could again hijack 4 airliners and commit this exact crime, but maybe something else. In what's generally still a free and open society, attacks are possible, but you have to lay over that the COVID-19 pandemic and the fact that foreigners are not finding it easy to get into the United States, even for tourism or business right now. And so that adds to the sense here in the U.S. that many Americans don't want foreigners to come in. We don't feel that safe. This 9/11 anniversary is a reminder of that. And so whether it's surveillance by the state or just good police and intelligence work, there are U.S. officials, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, who say, hey, there hasn't been another attack like 9/11 in these 20 years, so at least the security system seems to be working. But as for the U.S. reaching out and trying to eliminate the terror threat by invading Afghanistan and then Iraq, it does seem most Americans think that has been a failure.
Perhaps you are right, Dan. And I wonder if we can try and get into the mind then of Americans as they watch these pictures this morning and sort of reflect on the past 20 years. Of course, America really, the global superpower, saw itself in the aftermath of 9/11, or was described by many as the world's policeman. That change in status was precipitated, of course, by the attacks on 9/11, but there was a sort of a slow decline. I mean, you have been observing America through all that period, Dan. You've been there reporting on it. Can you put into words just sort of how that decline has been in evidence? Is the election of Donald Trump a sign of it? Is what happened on January the 6th a sign of it? But there has been a change, hasn't there?
Well, yes, politics here in this country truly tumultuous since September 11th, 20 years ago. That was the first year of George W. Bush as president. He got to be president for 8 years, 2 terms, invaded Afghanistan and Iraq, described himself as a wartime president. He was a Republican. Then the country turns to a Democrat, Barack Obama, with quite a bit of unity about electing the first African-American president, some pride in that. But Obama said he was going to end the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. He ended up sending more troops, having a surge. That seemed to work for a while, but not really. And of course, Obama was replaced after 8 years by a Republican different from any president we've had before, a businessman, Donald Trump, who didn't read intelligence reports, who just made decisions based on his gut instinct, who ordered the U.S. military to kill everybody in ISIS because of what ISIS had been doing in Syria and Iraq. Afterward, Donald Trump claims that that was a success, taking a heavy hand, that America was respected again in the Middle East and around the world. A lot of dispute about that, but that's the way Trump describes the world. And now, after 4 years of Trump, we have a Democrat again, Joe Biden. He was Obama's vice president. Biden is trying to unify the world and unify the country. Biden and Obama, by the way, are at this ceremony in New York that we're watching. And Biden has said that unity is our greatest strength. He's hoping it can be restored. But again, with the political divisions, even over the COVID pandemic, he can't even persuade all Americans to get vaccinated. I think clearly Biden has been frustrated by a lack of unity here.
Words are one thing, but getting the action is quite another. Okay, Dan Raviv, always appreciate your time, sir. Thank you very much for being with us.